Hello. Let me just fix my headpiece real quick. Oh. All right. So with me being neurodivergent as fuck, I have about 5,000 different thoughts a minute. And let me just explain first exactly where my thoughts came to. Where my thoughts came to was that when it comes to gang stalking, it occurred to me that people are committing genocide not only against me, but against people in this program who have been selected as targeted individuals. People are literally committing genocide and facilitating mass behavioral control towards a destructive direction. And everybody is doing that in order to protect lives that they didn't even want and still don't want. And the reason I came to this conclusion is it occurs to me that everything that human beings do, whether we talk or whether we, consume media, what we don't realize we're doing is we're trying to avoid actually feeling anything. And we don't seem to understand the consequences of pretending that we are emotionless and pretending that we don't think about other people all the time. We pretend that we're more high-minded than we are. We pretend that, we're above treating emotions as profane, but really we're not. And the result of us denying who we are is that those who are authentic are forced to retreat back to their inner child while the world calls them immature. Whilst those who fake and fraud their way through life, clocking up markers to maturity as if it's some kind of sport, they're the ones ironically living with their inner children all the time because, having a job, having children, having this, having that, like these are all the markers of maturity when you're still a goddamn child. And I didn't even realize that. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about all the things that I haven't done and all the things that honestly I don't want to do. And I'm just thinking about how gang stalking, let's not blame gang stalking for this. How the world has weaponized their own mistakes and their own fuck ups against people who haven't made those same mistakes. For example, with kids, I talked about the postpartum depression. I talked about how the amount of women dying in childbirth and during pregnancy is disproportionate according to their race. How like postpartum depression affects those who even manage to make it to be able to give birth to their children and live to tell the tale. So there's a postpartum depression. There's the fact that like standard childbirth takes weeks to heal from. There's the fact that even though women need 10 hours of sleep a night and men need 8 hours of sleep a night, those hours of sleep never come back again because you're having to look after this being that needs to rely on you around the clock. And it might not even be for 18 years. It might be for as long as you're breathing and you don't know. That's a marker of maturity, according to some people. Like, being a parent, like, is supposed to be some sign of maturity, but you're having children that in the first place you can't afford because the cost of healthcare is going up. Even in this country, the cost of healthcare is going up. Schooling is being defunded slowly but surely to the point where people will need to pay for academies to attend a halfway decent school. You've got policing, which is thinning out and being privatized. And that's nothing to say of the medical profession. The medical profession is on its knees right now. So like this hallmark of maturity, when measured against reality, it really makes me realize that a lot of people think they're mature because they've managed to weaponize their own mistakes and their own lack of thought in such a way that they're able to paint it off as a ticket to self-realization. And what they don't realize is that in creating a life that they don't want and weaponizing the life that they don't want against others, they're perpetuating cycles that just don't fucking end. And I'm not saying don't have kids. In fact, quite frankly, I wouldn't mind having kids, like adopting them. If I'm allowed to adopt them, I wouldn't mind adopting them, right? But my point is not about parenthood, it's about the markers of maturity. And I feel like a lot of people don't know what that is. And then you get a job you don't like, and you take the punishment of a job you don't like. And sometimes this is necessary in order to actually have the life that you want. You have to be able to take a job you don't like at some point. It doesn't matter if you are wanting to buy a house or if you are wanting to go into a career that you really want to go into. At some point, you have to do something you don't like. So that part I can understand. But thinking that having a house by a certain time or kids by a certain time or a car by a certain time, all of these are markers that you put in front of you when you're still a goddamn child and you're still engaging in your inner child to be able to achieve, like, because these are things that a child thinks maturity is. Meanwhile, the people who are outcasts, who are misfits, we have to connect with our inner children in a different way to everyone else. And in the meantime, we are seen as being childlike. We're infantilized at best, and at worst, we're completely disrespected and disregarded and not listened to. Whereas it's people like me who have actually had the forethought to be like, you know what, maybe I don't want to make the same mistakes as everyone else. Maybe I don't want to make huge mistakes in my life to weaponize against someone else so that I can continue a cycle where I'm doing this to other people. Maybe I don't want to be a parent or have a job or anything like that that enables me to actually engage in genocide to protect a life that was originally a fuck up to begin with. Like, I don't want to be put in that position. And for me, again, it's not about parenthood, it's about the markers of maturity. And that's where my mind went in thinking about the inner child and how we have a relationship with it. It actually occurs to me that I don't think we even realize that 9 times out of 10, the ones who don't fit in and the ones who are not really like, don't fit in anywhere, we're actually the ones who are denied our inner child. Everybody else gets to live in their inner child all the time by weaponizing their mistakes against other people for social credit. Like, I'm not saying that having a job is a mistake. Having a job you don't like is actually going to be very important because it teaches you how to navigate the rest of the world in a meaningful way in order to get ahead in life. So I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, nor am I saying it's bad to like have a social life or be able to get along with people. I'm not saying that's bad, but what I notice is that people fuck up and they use those fuck ups for social credit. Then they weaponize it against other people to the point where people are literally engaging in gang stalking and committing genocide and committing murder and torturing people, like, just so that they won't feel alone in a life that they didn't even want. That is wild to me. I can't imagine like wanting to torture somebody I don't know, wanting to kill somebody I don't know, just to protect a life that from the beginning is actually a detriment to me and is actually a liability. Like, I can't imagine doing that shit. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and it just doesn't strike me as a very mature thing to do. Do you understand what I mean? So, and again, I'm not explaining myself very well, but what I'm talking about here is the markers of maturity that have actively contributed in humanity's downfall. This marker that, if you don't have this house and this car and this, that, and this, that, it means that you failed and you're not an adult. But my life and the lives of all targeted individuals is proof that the biggest failure is to clock up these so-called markers of maturity without actually being mature. You're still letting, like with religion, Religion is basically childlike imagination that's been given structure. Even myself as an occultist, like, why do you think I like all this shit in the first place? It's because I liked, you know, I like the creativity of it all. That's what the fuck I like. I like that shit. Religion in and of itself, even having beliefs that seem to be the antithesis to religion, having anything that you put your whole emotion into is a way of engaging your childlike imagination and giving it structure. That's all religion is. Religion is basically giving your childhood imagination structure and allowing somebody else to give you something to cling to through their own imaginative works. But look what's happened as a result of it. Look at how people have treated it. Look at how many people have died in the name of billions of people throughout human history engaging in their inner children and calling that maturity. Capitalism happened as a result of adults basically honoring their inner children, doing what their inner children wanted to do. It, like, in order to make it through this world, it does not take emotional maturity. It actually takes the opposite. It takes you being completely engaged with your inner child and pretending like you're an adult. You know, capitalism happened as a result of our inner children. Systemic hierarchies happened as a result of our inner children. If you look at race science and you look at any type of eugenics, are you seriously going to sit there and tell me that those scientific findings are the works of people who are emotionally mature, who are emotionally sound? Are you really going to tell me that? Are you about to tell me that people who are behind gang stalking, who created gang stalking, who give orders every day, do this thing, rub your crotch and see how they respond to that? Call them a racial slur and see if they respond to that. Do you seriously think that is the work of people who are mature? Do you think that that is the work of people who are mature, who, you know, who have any kind of emotional maturity or self-awareness at all? Of course not. And yet you've got people on that level of emotional maturity and understanding reproducing, knowing good and goddamn well they're already in debt just by breathing. You've got people out here working in jobs they don't like and weaponizing their own wrongful choices as social credit and as a way to fucking, you know, to fucking, how do I put this? You know, using that as an opportunity to disenfranchise others who are not doing the same thing as them. All of that is childish shit. And I never thought I'd say this because I'm one of those people, I'm very in touch with, you know, I like to be imaginative and, you know, and play and stuff like that. And I'm not going to hold you. I spend most of my life doing that. Like, I'm in a position where I can. And ironically, it's because of the same people that I'm complaining about why I'm able to do what I do. But that's another subject matter for another time. But this whole thing about all these markers of maturity, like, if they were any type of mature at all, you would not be committing genocide and murder to be able to, like, there's no way. It's one thing for you to do that. Like, even then it's wrong. Like, it's one thing for you to commit genocide and murder. It's one thing for you to ostracize people. It's one thing for you to do all that for a life you actually want. That might not be a sign of maturity, but at the very least, it's a sign of integrity. But for you to do all that to fucking weaponize your fuck ups and try to protect a life you didn't even want and still don't want, you're in touch with your inner child more than you know. And it's emotional repression that got you there. And it's you pretending like you're higher minded than thinking about other people that got you there. So it's like, I'm thinking about all these markers of maturity and I'm not getting angry, but I'm just like, it's just a thought. Nobody said anything to me. Nobody's that nobody's said anything slick. It was just a thought. It was just a thought. I feel like I feel like people pretend so much. They pretend so often. And the glue of unity among human beings seems to be pretense and lies and illusion. And if I'm honest, I am emotionally led. Other people are the center of my world too, even if I'm by myself, right? Like me watching videos and me talking about philosophy and me talking about psychology and me talking about gang stalking, all of that is about other people. So, like every other human being, I am an emotional person who likes to think and talk about other people. But because these things are seen as low and profane and small minded, people like to play this game of pretending like they're not emotional. They like to ignore their emotions in order to play a game of who can be the most mature, of who can earn the most, of who can have the healthiest and sturdiest children whilst being the most reprehensible human beings on the planet. It's because of that emotional repression and because of the lack of acknowledgement that, yes, I do need people. It's this greedy, needy, like narcissistic urge to just like collect as many people as possible whilst secretly disdaining the very people that you leech from. That's the cycle that we're all caught up in, that we call maturity. And it is just wild to me. I'm sitting here thinking, the amount of people, the amount of times that people have gotten at me for having no children, and I'm like, first of all, like, your insides take weeks to heal. Sometimes you can crack a rib by giving birth. And then there's the postpartum depression. I already have borderline personality disorder and complex PTSD from all the abuse that I've been subjected to. And then on top of that, people are diagnosing me as paranoid schizophrenic. And yet, like, me not having kids is like, what, you want me to have kids in the midst of that just to impress you? You don't even want your life. Like, how the fuck are you going to do that when you don't even want your life? And then on top of that, this whole thing about maturity, I really let some stupid ass people browbeat me, didn't I? I really let some stupid ass people browbeat me. Like, I'm not drowning in debt. I'm not out here committing genocide and murder on behalf of a life I didn't even want and kids I didn't even want to have. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm not doing that. But sure, let me get some postpartum depression. Let me stretch my pussy out to the point where I need 6 weeks to heal just to be able to impress people who don't even want their lives. Let me have a job I don't like for God knows how long, putting up with God knows how much harassment so that I can impress people who don't even want the same thing anyway. Let me fucking join a gang stalking effort just to protect a life I didn't even want and still don't fucking want. Let me do all of those things so that I can get some respect. Oh, Lord. Like, this world is a mess. And I haven't even gotten into the long-term implications for everyone on the fucking planet. All we're doing is doing the same shit in a cycle because nobody wants to learn, nobody wants to grow, nobody wants to change. Everybody's talking about it. Nobody wants to actually do it. Me, for instance, and, my mate Pauline Chung and Barry Trower, who we both met, like, people like, yeah. The people that I've been talking to, like all the TIs that I've been talking to on all my social media, we are literally out here with information that could save billions of lives around the planet. But nobody fucking cares. Nobody wants their lives saved. Nobody wants their lives saved. If people wanted their lives saved, they would have been saved. We wouldn't be having God knows how many elders being killed off. But we do. We wouldn't be having children being trafficked. But we do. We wouldn't be having people being murdered, not only by gang stalking, but among the general public too. But we do. We wouldn't be facing a hunger crisis looming over the horizon, but we are. We wouldn't be having wars all over the world. Like we've only had like about 3 centuries. Like, I could be wrong about this, but I feel like we've had like over 3 centuries of peace in over thousands of years of human history. We wouldn't be looking at that if people were actually mature and people were actually grown. We wouldn't be going through any of these things if people were actually grown and actually mature and actually accountable for anything that they did. I know that I'm not innocent either. I'm not a fucking hero. I'm sorry, I'm not. I try to be a good person, but I'm not a hero. I know that. I'm not a hero. I'm not a fucking hero. I've got ways. But it just feels like when it feels like when people say, people try to isolate you, you really have to sit back and think, what are they isolating you from? It's not like I don't want to be like engaged with other human beings, but what am I being isolated from? Really think about it. As a targeted individual, look at the world critically. Look at what they're doing. It's cycle after cycle of things not getting better. It has been hundreds of thousands of years of nothing fucking changing except the technology. What are you being excluded from? You've really got to think. You've really got to think. What are you being excluded from? Really think about it. If you want it, like, the only thing you're being excluded from is money. And at worst, the ability to survive, but you're not being deprived of anything of real worth. Well, apart from your ability to survive, that is of real worth. But apart from that, what are you being deprived of by being excluded by these people? What are you really losing? What are you really losing? You're surrounded by people who want to take things from you that they don't even want for themselves. You're surrounded by people who are torturing and murdering you to protect lives that they didn't even want. What are you being excluded from? Who are you being excluded from? That's all I'm saying. Maturity and the subject of it. I'm not making my point very well, but really think about maturity and what it means. Maturity is death. Maturity means you don't have children until you're absolutely sure. It means you don't get that job. It means you don't work for that person. It means you don't do that job you don't like unless you're fighting for a life that you actually love. It means you don't do anything unless you're fighting for something or someone that you actually love. But a lot of people will do that do it for less than that, a lot less than that. That's what maturity is. But maturity is death. In order to keep the human race going, in order for us to really be survive, it takes ignorance. It takes ignorance, and a lot of it. That's why nobody changes. That's why nobody grows. That's why everybody keeps repressing their emotions and shit. It's because I feel like deep down they know the only way they're going to survive is to be fucking dumb and do dumb shit. And then instead of taking accountability for their mistakes, weaponizing those mistakes against the rest of the world and getting social credit out of it. You know? But maturity is death, I've realized. And I'm all right with that. I mean, it's it's not a bad thing to be mature. But being truly mature, People don't know what that is. If they did, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in right now. We wouldn't allow hunger, to rob us of our common sense here. Like, it's like a lot of us adults out here, we don't know what maturity is. We just use those markers to figure things out. And in the meantime, we don't even realize we're letting our inner children run fucking riot out here. Some of us more than others. But then again, am I really any different? Really? But it's just that my inner child wants to do different things than somebody else's inner child. Am I really any different? Maybe my inner child happens to be more logical. Maybe she happens to be less of an idiot. But am I really different? Am I really that different to everyone else? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I'm just different. Not better, not that, but different. So, yeah, I don't think I made my point very well. I didn't make my point very well. I'm sure I came up with gems here and there. I'm sure I'll watch this back and be like, whoa, did I really say that? It usually happens. But yeah, it was just a thought. Nobody said anything slick. Again, nobody said anything slick. Nobody said anything. I mean, gang stalkers usually say stupid shit, but um, it was just a thought. The inner child thing was what triggered it. The inner child thing was what triggered it. I don't think anybody ever needed help accessing their inner child. They act from it all the time. It's just that when they act on it, they act on it towards destruction. But then again, like I said before, maturity is death. True emotional maturity is death. It's restraint. And I don't think a lot of us would have what we have if everybody was emotionally mature. That's just my take on it. Yeah. But it was just brain vomit. I just needed to get it out. But anyway, if you managed to make it to the end of this ramble and you want to let me know how you guys are, drop a comment. I always want to hear from you guys. Peace and blessings, and thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.